Chronicles. It was a quiet morning when Jonathan found them, each of his little girls lying so still, their favorite toys tucked by their sides as if they had merely drifted into a peaceful sleep. 3-year-old Grace, with her curly brown hair still tied in a pink ribbon, 4-year-old Emma, who never let her worn teddy bear out of sight, and 5-year-old Lily, her eyes closed like she was dreaming one of her adventurous dreams. Jonathan couldn't comprehend it at first. Disbelief washed over him, clouding his mind as he gently touched each of their cold faces, clinging to the hope that somewhere, somehow, they might awaken. In the dim glow of the interrogation room, Laura sat with her head hung low, wrists bound in cold metal. She felt the weight of what she had done, heavy, suffocating. Her lips trembled, and her fingers twitched as if reaching for something that wasn't there, her children's hands, their laughter, the warmth of their small bodies. But those days had vanished, replaced by an endless darkness that she had chosen herself. She wanted to cry, but her tears had run dry, leaving only a hollow ache where her heart used to be. The jail cell was stark, the air thick with the scent of mildew and rust. As Laura sank onto the hard, cold bench, she ran her fingers along the jagged stone wall, feeling its coarse surface, letting it scrape her skin. The silence was different here, more profound, almost deafening. She closed her eyes and saw them, Grace's cherubic smile, Emma's bright blue eyes, and Lily's gentle face, always looking up to her. The thought hit her like a stone, she would never hold them again, never hear them call her mommy. Emma was 4, the curious soul with the big, blue eyes that sparkled with wonder at every new discovery. She was the one who collected leaves in autumn, pressed them in books, and called them her treasures. Laura could still see her, hands outstretched, holding a crumpled maple leaf, saying, "Mommy, look. It's gold." Emma had a laugh that rang like a bell, pure and bright, and in these quiet moments in the cell, it echoed in Laura's mind, filling the silence, mocking her with what she had taken away. They came only once. Her mother and father stood on the other side of the glass, eyes cold and unrecognizing. Her mother, whose hand Laura had clutched during her first heartbreak, looked at her now as though she were a stranger, someone she couldn't understand. "You are no daughter of mine," her father had said, his voice firm, final, with no hint of love or forgiveness. They turned and walked away without another word. Laura was left alone with the crushing truth that she had severed every bond, lost every connection that had once held her to the world. Lily was 5, wise beyond her years, always watching over her younger sisters with a calm tenderness. She loved reading, even at her young age, she would sit for hours with picture books, inventing her own stories for the images. Laura remembered how she would tuck Lily in at night, listening to her whisper, "Good night, Mommy. I love you to the moon and back." The memory twisted in her chest, a knife wound that bled fresh each time she thought of it. She would never hear those words again, nor feel Lily's tiny arms around her neck. The prison walls seemed to close in, colder and more suffocating each day. Laura had no illusions now, she knew what awaited her. Death was the end she had earned, a consequence she no longer ran from. She spent her nights staring up at the ceiling, counting each crack and crease in the concrete, accepting her guilt. She had taken the lives she was meant to protect, and for that, she knew she would pay with her own. But some nights, she felt that was too kind of punishment, one that would end her suffering too quickly. As the first night fell in her cell, Laura closed her eyes and drifted into a restless sleep. In her dreams, she saw her daughters running through a sunlit field, laughter echoing in the wind. Grace was chasing a butterfly, Emma was gathering dandelions, and Lily, ever the leader, ran ahead, looking back with a smile that held the world's promise. But suddenly, the sun dimmed, and shadows crept over the field. The girls vanished into the mist, their laughter fading into silence. Laura reached out, calling their names, her voice breaking, but they were gone. She awoke gasping, her heart pounding, realizing she was still trapped in the cold, unforgiving cell, alone in the silence she had created. It was an ordinary day, the sun had risen like any other, and Laura had taken her daughters to the park. She remembered watching them play, their laughter floating in the air like music. Grace had climbed up the slide, hesitant but determined, while Emma and Lily cheered her on, hands clapping in encouragement. Laura had felt a flicker of pride, a rare glimmer of joy in her weary heart. She had hugged each of them tightly before bed that night, not knowing it would be the last time. If only she could go back, she thought, go back and hold them once more, tell them she loved them, and perhaps, change what was to come. As Laura sat in the interrogation room, snippets of her daughter's voices echoed in her mind. "Mommy, can we go to the zoo again? Will you read me a story?" She could almost see them sitting around her, eyes wide, eager for her attention. Her hands, bound in handcuffs, trembled as she stared at the officer across the table. He asked her questions she barely heard, his words merging into a hollow buzz as she struggled to separate reality from memory. The children's faces blurred in her mind, slipping away from her like sand through her fingers. She clung to the remnants of their voices, but they, too, were fading, leaving her drowning in the agony of her own choices. Inside her cell, Laura's mind wandered to their toy chest, the chest that had held her daughter's favorite things. Grace's doll with the blue dress and missing button eye, Emma's well-loved teddy bear, and Lily's prized storybook, pages worn from countless reads. She had packed each toy away herself, wrapping them gently, as though preserving her children's spirits within. Now, she wondered who would care for those things, who would dust off the memories she had tainted, who would cradle the remnants of the innocence she had destroyed. The thought made her shudder, a coldness settling in her bones. Laura's mind returned to the last night, the night before everything changed. She remembered each of her daughter's voices as they murmured "Good-night, Mommy," their tiny hands clutching hers as they drifted to sleep. Lily had whispered, "Mommy, I love you more than all the stars." Those words now felt like barbs in her heart, twisting and tearing, a reminder of the love she had shattered. She could still feel their hands, small and warm, trusting, clinging to her fingers, and the memory scorched her soul. She would never again feel those little fingers intertwined with hers. That final goodnight haunted her, a testament to the trust she had so completely betrayed. In the dark hours of the night, Laura sometimes felt a strange sensation, a warmth, a gentle pressure on her shoulder, as though one of her daughters were beside her. Her heart would leap, and she'd glance around the cold, empty cell, finding nothing but shadows. Her mind played tricks on her, filling the silence with phantom giggles and soft whispers of "Mommy." But when she reached out, her hand touched only the cold, damp wall, bringing her back to the stark reality of her solitude. In those moments, she felt the full weight of her loss, realizing these shadows were all she had left of her children. Laura's mother and father had once come to visit, their faces stony, expressions etched with grief and fury. They barely looked at her through the glass, and when her father spoke, his words were knives. "You were their mother, how could you?" The accusation hung in the air, a truth she could not deny. She had seen the pain in their eyes, the agony they carried for the lives she had ended. She reached out a trembling hand to the glass, but they turned away, leaving her with the crushing realization that she had severed every connection to her past, and now, she had no one left who could forgive her. One night, as Laura lay on the cold, hard bed, she imagined saying goodbye, not to her daughters, but to the mother she had once been. She saw herself, holding Grace's tiny hand, stroking Emma's hair, whispering to Lily. She was leaving behind that person, the woman who had once known love, laughter, and tenderness. She whispered a silent farewell, feeling the last shreds of her old self fall away. The woman she was now belonged in the shadows, among the forgotten, where ghosts of the past would haunt her forever. Thanks for tuning into Crime Chronicles. If you enjoyed this case and want to stay updated on more intriguing stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us uncover even more mysteries. See you at the next case.